You could look at each of these webinars as singularly focused, mine towards human resources in terms of engagement inside the organization, Jeremy's multi-stakeholder engagement being focused towards strategy, and Paula's on branding geared towards sales and marketing professionals. But the shift in business that we refer to is what's driving this content being universal across functions. As we progress through the content, we're going to continue to address the connection. We'll also reinforce, why sales should care and influence internal employee engagement and why HR should care and influence branding, for example. In essence, everyone in the organization should understand how their role plays an integral part in authentic stakeholder connection. And I really believe that that's the key to the future, a more collaborative and authentic environment. Additionally, there are some terms that we use throughout the webinars, and we've gone over these in each session, and we're going to do so again today because I think these concepts are important to clarify. So what do we mean by business being in transition? Well, the world's in transition, right? From globalization, social media and information sharing, economic challenges, and progression of other cultures and the impact on resources, we see a full circle return to a relationship-based economy. In your specific roles, you of course are all about relationships. However, the corporation as a whole doesn't tend to focus in that manner, and that's what we aim to address in these webinars. So when we refer to the stakeholder, who are we referring to? That's referring to anyone impacted by your company and its behavior, starting with employees and including suppliers, partners, competitors, communities where your supply chain operates, shareholders, etc., and of course your customers. Our premise is that once you're operating authentically, it all comes together. Somewhere along the way, the customer as a focal point was replaced by the shareholder as a focal point. And really, all these stakeholders impact your brand. And the brand has to be authentic to make a positive connection. So when we talk about authentic connection, what do we mean? That's about the company and its stakeholders being a transparent alignment. It's about owning what it stands for and acting from intention against those values. It's about really understanding who we are as organizations and how we operate in the world, and most importantly, the impact that we have. With sustainability being such a strong topic today in terms of environmental, we want to clarify that in this context, we're referring to strategy that has staying power in the new shifting business world. Our belief is that authentic connection is at the center of strategy that is not just sustainable, but wildly powerful in terms of achieving long-term success. So that clarifies the terms that you're going to be hearing throughout. And with that said, I'm really excited to introduce today's presenter, Paula Schaper. Paula is the owner and CEO of WestWordVision. WestWordVision is a full-service business consulting, branding, and public relations agency that sparks the evolutionary success of business through greater self-knowledge. Paula helps communities of all kinds recognize and use their authentic character, connect, and energize stakeholders to develop distinctive branding, create deeper relationships with audiences, and build a foundation for rapid, sustainable, strategic action. Her Genus Factor method concentrates on building businesses by leveraging three important cultural assets: the collective intelligence, personality, and energy within and between organizations. Paul is also a marketing consultant to TRE Networks, a national organization working to accelerate U.S. competitiveness by helping regions innovate and develop place-based technology and advantage. So after receiving a Bachelor of Music degree in harp performance from the University of Michigan, Paula has a unique background. She branded musical artists Emerson, Lake and Palmer, Aerosmith, and Paula Abdul, to name a few. And in collaboration with her business partner, she built the largest paid fan club in history for New Kids on the Block. Pretty cool stuff, actually. And Paula and I met when I was with my last company. She was a vendor who produced internal communication pieces for us. And at that time, we built a really great relationship. And when I left and decided to go out on my own, it was actually quite serendipitous that Paula's work was in transition as well. And we really found that, especially with her branding from the inside out and her topics today, that we share the same beliefs and we have the same aspirations for the future. And we've been working together ever since. So with that said, I'm really excited and thrilled to turn it over to Paula.
Wow, thanks, Kim. Thank you for that great introduction. I'm so happy to be here with you all today. And before I tell you what our work is focused on, I want to start out with a poll just to get everyone's get a pulse on your ideas about branding. So I'm going to go ahead and launch this poll. And please keep in mind, many of these answers are true, but I would like you to pick one that most predominantly comes to your mind when you think of branding. Okay. Wow. All right. We almost have all the votes in. Anyone else want to vote? Okay. Let's see. We have got 45% organizational culture, 18% consumers and customers, 18 products and services, 18 personality. All right, great. Um, okay, so now I can tell you what we're all about. We work with organizations and communities to help them use their core culture to fuel their relationships, collaboration, innovation, strategic decisions, and their brands. Um, I started on the outside seeking character rich branding and moved to the inside of organizational cultures. And I wanted to find those unique elements that differentiated one organization or community from another. So I'm here today to tell you why your internal culture matters so much to your branding. And I'm pleased to see so many people thinking about organizational culture with the word and concept of branding. That's great. Just real briefly, I want to review that things have changed, and I know Kimberly outlined that articulately. But we're in a different economy now, and business isn't even what it was 20 years ago. So the playing field has moved from domestic to global. Structures used to be hierarchical, and now they're flat, opened, and networked. Direction used to be top down. Now it's shared amongst all employees and team members. Technology used to be basic, and now it's advanced. We've taken huge leaps forward with technology. And power used to be hoarded, and now we share our knowledge. So we've come out of an industrial economy where mass production, mass marketing, and mass consumption prevailed. And we're all experiencing these really big shifts in the global supply chain, technology, currencies, power structures around the world. So, if you're doing business today, you need to be smart, and that is possessing good decision making and an ability to see the context of what's happening and anticipate the future so you can make good, smart decisions so your organization survives and also thrives. You need to be quick and have an agile structure so you can respond quickly to known and unknown changes. We're seeing, market factors shift all the time, those that we might not even have expected. You need to be brave because it takes guts to survive and thrive today. We're all in the global playing field, and ultimately, we're all out there trying to figure it out. And you need to be creative. Your organization will want to work together, collaborate, create together. And that's the life, really, of a 21st century successful organization or community. All these things, if you possess them, we think you'll do really well in this economy that we're in, the high tech, creative, global economy. Okay, I'm going to share about 5 new economy facts. And with each one of them, I'll begin with a poll. All right. So I would like to ask you, who is your organization's most important stakeholder? Your customers, your stockholders, your organization, your supply chain. Again, they all can be true, but pick which one you think is the most important stakeholder. Oh, sorry, guys, you don't see that. There you go. Okay. Okay, got most of the votes in. It's looking like 80% of you view your customers as the most important stakeholder, and 20% of you view your organization as the most important stakeholders. And I can certainly see why 80% of you feel your customers are the most important. Um, let's see. Well, I may surprise a lot of you. I'm Here to say in the new economy, your most important stakeholder is your organization. And I like to tell people forget your customers, forget your competition, forget your products. Um, don't start there. Start on the inside with your people. And we'll get back to these other important stakeholders later. When you see how important your culture is, and when you build a contagious brand using your culture, a brand that attracts people and to your organization or community. I recently read, it's an older article, it's about 2 years old, in Inc. magazine, an article entitled "Deliver Value to Your Employees, Your Most Important Stakeholders." And the CEO of a healthcare company explained how to get employees to show up for work with passion, productivity, and focus, and increase profits. He says if you want employees to take a vested interest in the bigger picture, treat them like stakeholders. So, how do you succeed in today's economy? You certainly don't succeed by imitating others. You've got to know what's going on in the world, but more importantly, it's very important that you know about yourself and your internal culture. This is an interesting case study. According to Business Week, HCL is the world's one of the world's most influential companies, and they're a leading global technology and IT company. They have annual revenues of 6.2 billion, and they have locations in 31 countries. They developed a pioneering strategy called Employees First, Customers Second. And they're really out front about that. I believe it's on the homepage of their website. It places the needs of employees before the needs of customers. And that's because the company, they believe this strategy has helped them to prosper by 30% in 1 year during a recession. And using this strategy, it also put them in a competitive position coming out of recession. This was in 2008 and 2009. And the company attributes its success over the last few years to giving employees more power and making management transparent. There has been a book written about it. It was published by the Harvard Press. And the book says today many products and services have become commodities, and companies often distinguish themselves not by what they sell, but how they deliver those products and services. Yet, this fundamental shift in the markets has not yet induced any significant change in the way most companies are structured and managed. While they compete in the 21st century, the majority of today's companies are still shaped organizationally by 20th century management ideas. Here's the interface they use between the company and the customer. They actually um, empower their employees as the most important part of their company. And so workers are encouraged to use their own initiative and make decisions themselves. During annual reviews, employees actually score their managers, and the scores are published on the internet. If the managers have low scores, they may even be expected to resign, and there is complete transparency within the company. That's pretty remarkable, I think. Okay. I'm going to do another poll, new economy fact two, before we go ahead and reveal that. I'm going to ask you how you define capital or wealth for your business or your organization. Okay, we've got about 50% of you voting. Thought provoking, perhaps?
Yeah, tough question, actually.
Yeah,
Very deep.
you almost don't want to have to choose, but
Hmm.
okay, 75% of the vote in. Oh, 83. Anyone else? Okay. It's looking like 40% view physical assets like real estate and equipment, 50% being able to follow your passion, 10% a supportive work environment. Great. Okay. All right. Well, your internal culture is extremely valuable capital. And if you're not tapping into it, you're actually leaving money on the table. So you've got to see yourself in this economy, your organization or your community, as the most, I would say, the most valuable capital that you actually have. So we all need to ask ourselves, how are we treating that asset? How much time do we spend learning about our organization versus our customers? Because unless you tap into and leverage this internal culture, I don't think you're going to thrive in this today's world economy. So you get there by knowing more of who you are and what you're capable of doing as a whole. And those cultural attributes I mentioned earlier, quick, smart, bold, creative, those all come from the inside. No one can give you those, and you have to grow those. I like to think of athletes in an intense and rewarding game with all players coordinated and performing in the zone. They've done their work, they've mastered their skills. So in the new economy, there's a new bottom line, and it's your team, it's your culture, and we're going to talk about how you can tap into that in a little bit. I often hear the phrase "it's all about the bottom line," and I'm sorry, when I hear people say that, I actually think they're out of touch because yes, you're in business to make money, but now what? The question in this economy is how do you get there? How do you achieve that? And there are many more factors at play today. I think Kim did a really good job 2 weeks ago talking about and demonstrating the other aspects of the bottom line and how a fulfilled and valued team can significantly bolster the bottom line. Gary Hamel is referred to as the world's leading economic strategist, and he actually says that financial, structural, and intellectual capitals by themselves do not create new wealth in this world's economy. He offers these other kinds of organizational capital for today's competitive era: imagination, entrepreneurial, relationship capital. And these are all expressions of cultural wealth. I don't know if any of you talk to young people, but we've been working with some students around advanced manufacturing, and I've read articles about this too. They're not just interested in the bottom line, they want meaning and purpose as much and maybe even more than money. And this is our rising workforce. This is the talent that's already in the market. They want to contribute to something much bigger than self. I like to say that we can create organizations and communities that fill our pocketbooks and fill our hearts. And so we're going to talk about that today. New economy fact three. Okay, let's launch our poll. What do you think gives one organization an advantage over another? All right, go ahead and take a look at those. Pick the top factor in advantage. All right, we've got about 75% of the vote in. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close that. Yeah, you've got that's good. I understand that intuition. 70% workforce, 30% originality niche. Okay. Um, in the new economy, I maintain that your business advantage is wrapped up in your originality. And Michael Porter, a well-known authority on competitive strategy, a long time ago identified two kinds of competitive advantage. One was cost, and one is differentiation advantage. And in differentiation advantage, your company or community delivers benefits that exceed those of competing organizations. So I maintain in this economy, and especially here in America, if you're going to want to go with the differentiation, which I refer to as niche. And by the way, Michael Porter refers to product uniqueness. I would also extend that to organizational uniqueness. People do care about the company that they buy from. In fact, Kim had a wonderful statistic 2 weeks ago. It was published by Reputation Institute. It said people's willingness to buy, recommend, work for, and invest in a company is driven 60% by their perceptions of the company and only 40% by their perceptions of their products. Very interesting statistic. Based on Thomas Friedman's book, The World is Flat, you're probably all familiar with this. The playing field has
Hey,
been
Paula.
leveled. Yeah.
Paula, hate to interrupt. Your presentation is
Oh,
not showing on the screen. I want to let you
very
know from the
good.
poll.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yep.
Thanks, Kim. So
Okay.
the playing field has been leveled, and technology and political forces have converged. And now we're in this global web enabled playing field that allows for multiple forms of collaboration without regard to geography, distance, or even language. And the world has gone from size large to size medium to size small to size tiny. And now that the world is flattened, you need to be creative to succeed. So that's why we hear so much about the innovation economy today. This is an excerpt from Thomas Friedman. I think this is fascinating. He says, I firmly believe that the next great breakthrough in bioscience could come from a 15-year-old who downloads the human genome in Egypt. Bill Gates has a nice line. He says, 20 years ago, would you rather have been a B student in Poughkeepsie or a genius in Shanghai? 20 years ago, you'd much rather be a B student in Poughkeepsie. Today, not even close. You'd much prefer to be the genius in Shanghai because you can now export your talents anywhere in the world. So it's a really exciting time to be on the planet. A little scary, but ultimately, I think it's exciting. So, okay, new economy fact number 4. Who is the most important perspective when it comes to creating your brand? And I'll go ahead and launch that. Okay, almost 50% in. Okay, 75% have voted. 83. Anyone else? Okay. Go ahead and close that and share it. We've got 50% of you saying the leadership team's perspective, 30% employees, and 20% customers. Okay, that's great. All right. Your internal culture defines your brand. So, why am I talking about all this internal stuff when I'm supposed to be talking about branding? Because if you want to build a brand for the long term in this economy, you need to understand and leverage your culture. And you actually need to cultivate the life of your culture and project it into your brand. So I would ask you to just consider one simple thing. How much time do you spend when it comes to branding, discovering and distilling your internal culture into your brand? Don't need to answer, but just think about that. Okay. So, branding for the 21st century is different than it was in the last century. Traditional branding has taken the view that the only thing that matters about your brand is what the consumer thinks. It says that your perceptions about your products and organizations reside only in the mind of the consumer. I believe that we need to progress branding, and some people definitely are. And it's been a consumer focused approach to selling products and services, but the world has evolved, and so should our approach to branding. The problem is if you keep that traditional branding perspective, it takes you away from yourself and it focuses you mostly on customer perceptions. There's one problem with that perspective. The good stuff, the ideas and passion and insights of your team are on the inside. And that's something that Kim, Jeremy, and I have seen and that we share. So, to build a successful brand, you need to focus on the knowledge of your team more than the perceptions of your customers. May seem a little counterintuitive, but we'll show you how to do that. So, a lot of leading edge companies already know this. It's not surprising. You've probably heard of Tony Hsieh. He's the CEO of Zappos, and he actually says your culture is your brand. You've got to spend time then on the inside, gaining more knowledge and self awareness to play in the 21st century economy. In his book, Delivering Happiness A Path to Passion, Profits, and Purpose, he actually says that building a brand today is very different from building a brand 50 years ago, when a few people got together, decided what the brand positioning was going to be, and then spent a lot of money buying advertising, telling people what their brand was. If you were able to spend enough money, he says, then you were able to build your brand. It was a one way approach. And he's right. I was there, it was like that. And he continues with the internet connecting everyone together. Companies are becoming more and more transparent, whether they like it or not. An unhappy customer or a disgruntled employee can blog about a bad experience with the company, and the story can spread like wildfire by email or with tools like Twitter. The good news is that the reverse is true as well. A great experience with a company can be read by millions of people almost instantaneously. So the best solution is to get your team on board, tap into their passions and talents and let them be your best brand ambassadors. Okay, this is our last poll accompanying new economy fact number 5. Here we go. Let me publish that for you. Did you ever not work with an organization based on the positive or negative energy you sensed, either physically or virtually? This is a simple yes or no. Okay. All right. We've got most of the votes in. 80% of you say yes, 20% say no. It's not too surprising. I think sometimes we forget how we project the energy of our organizations or communities. So, okay, good. Well, you won't be surprised then. Your team's energy makes or breaks your business in the new economy. You want to get everyone on board with the same dream, get a good vibe going, walk away from any hierarchy, and treat everyone with respect on your team. In the 21st century economy, I think of it as a team sport. No great team gets distracted by focusing on the other team. And there's actually a Japanese saying, "Dushu imu." It means same bed, different dreams. And this will not work in today's economy. You've got to be coordinated, on the same page, dreaming the same dream to succeed. The days of top down management and internal turfdom are over. And I really don't believe you can thrive in the global economy with that type of culture. According to Thomas Friedman, everything we are doing in the global supply chain is taking the fat out of the system at every joint. You've got to be quick, smart, creative, and brave. Author Scott Stratton talks about business being authentic relationships today. And we've all been sold, manipulated, pressured in business. That kind of selling isn't going to work. Authentic relationships are centered on genuine reciprocity. And I had the pleasure of hearing Scott this last summer at the Arizona Tourism Conference. He was really great. He's an ambassador for relationship building and engagement, a cornerstone of the economy that we're in. So I would say don't sell people, connect authentically instead, and think in terms of your niche. Master it, own it, love it, and share it. So this is a pathway here where we talk about on the inside having authentic relationships within your organization where you build trust. And that gives your team the confidence to collaborate or share together, innovate or co create together, decide and choose their future together, and brand or project who they are to the world. Your brand is a projection of who you are, not what others think you are. So I frequently create brands for businesses, and truthfully, I think they're wasting time and money if they don't first tap into the collective life and potential that's in their organization. You need to have trusted relationships on the inside before you can authentically connect and project who you are to external audiences. Okay, I'm going to give you a quick overview of 3 phases I like to use. It's a whole systems process for branding and building business. And the model is based on discovering and leveraging the genetics of your culture, how and why your culture evolves through time, past, present, and future. The first zone we work in is the confidence zone. The second is the credibility zone, and the third is the advantage zone. Today, we're going to focus on zone 1 and 2. I ask you, don't be overwhelmed by all the icons and focus areas. Really, if you just even develop and leverage two areas in each zone, it makes a huge difference in connecting and defining your team and then creating a contagious, alive brand. I've worked using this model with universities, companies, nonprofits, municipalities, and economic regions so they can create the authentic brand connection. And at some point, all these various areas of self knowledge converge. They become, and Kim, you mentioned this in the open, they become your collective intellect, personality, and energy. So, if we start with zone one, grow internal confidence, you want to focus on what your culture uniquely shares in common, not the differences, but the elements that cut a level deeper and connect and distinguish your culture from any other on earth. I call this your self reference. It's where you find all the treasures, all the things that set you apart and differentiate you from others, even who are in the same industry or in the same market. It's really about getting on the same page and seeing what you share in common. It's about transparency and trust in action. And so, how do we get there? We define your character and we look at these areas: life forming milestones, events of any kind that have shaped the course of your organization, expressions of originality, any tools, techniques, methods, inventions, and ideas created by your team, talents and passions. This is the individual talents and passions of your team members, as well as collective mapping that can show where areas of energy well up. Um, see, uh, Belief and value system. This is an overarching premise outlining that shapes your business practices each and every day. Organizing structures. We like to use graphics that show the pathways within your organization for communicating, monetizing, marketing, decision making, product and service making. Vision and aim, these are statements that support strategies and projected outcomes. They clearly articulate what your team dreams, aims, and aspires to be in the next 2 to 5 years. And your geographic position, a map highlighting your organization or community's locational strengths, weaknesses, threats, opportunities, assets, and advantages. And stories and mythologies. There's all kinds of stories of creation, transition, learning, reward, loss, legacy, ingenuity. And when you capture and communicate those, you can use that for a lot of good reasons. It's really about your history, heritage, mythology, and helping you make decisions for the future. The second zone is build external credibility. And here we want to package your most personable and appealing traits, those that your key audiences value most, to create more credible avenues of authentic engagement. This is your other reference. Now you can look out and see how you fit into the bigger picture, the marketplace. And this is the key to creating this living, contagious brand that attracts people to your organization. You've got to find more of the connective tissue in zone one and distill it into your public brand in zone two. Okay. So, what do we do in this zone? We share your gifts. Now you can move out of self reference and into other reference, and you can share your personality traits. These are repeated patterns of thought, emotion, behavior, and motivation. Your vocational roles. This is your organization's most predominant professional or livelihood roles. Your relationships, trusted, influential connections with people and entities you've connected with along the way. Your mastery skill sets, core competencies that your organization has gained through repeated practice and expressed through excellence. Product relevance, the deeper, more meaningful facets of your products and services. Your leadership positions, ways that your organization has consistently stepped up in business and perhaps in the community. Knowledge niches, entire areas of collective knowledge that your team has developed through time. And points of view or points of reference. These are valid and valuable perspectives that your team has learned and embraces. So you can be bigger than your own organization and play at this higher level. And when you do this, you become more relevant and you gain credibility, which is why we call it the credibility zone. And the third area, which I will give you a worksheet. It will focus on the first two zones, but you've looked in and you've gained a strong self-reference, and then you've looked out and you've seen how you fit into the larger market context. Now we look forward and we anticipate what's coming down the pike. and we insert your organization using your niche advantage. And so in this stage, we want to promote your niche, and we do that through your business category, through your brand position, which is what we're focusing on here today, your narrative platform, your market alignment, your channel optimization, the communication tools you select, the audiences you engage, and sales and monetization. So remember, it's what you offer that no one else offers. It's your niche, it's your originality. I want to share just a few examples here. This is a client we worked with who's a jeweler, and we started in zone one, growing internal confidence, and we uh, interviewed and did a lot of exploration with all the team members, and we learned that due to financial pressures, which isn't unusual, this client charted out a new business model, and she didn't even realize she had done it. We discovered her originalities and the details of her new model, and we shared them in her press kit to set her apart from any other jeweler on earth. She had actually created a model that in our competitive research we have not even today seen any other jeweler using. It was a high touch, high tech global model. So that's the power of what you can use on the inside. And we also saw a new opportunity based on trends and encouraged her to seize a new and emerging audience. And we even outlined this strategy in the press kit. For this client, we applied this originality asset to, well, she had already charted out the business model, and then we used it in her branding, all her advertising, and in her narrative, her press kit. Another example here is with a community. This is the town of Marana in Arizona, and this is focusing now on zone two, building external credibility. We identified the community's predominant personality traits, these habitual patterns of behavior, thought, and emotion through time. We did a lot of stakeholder interviews, group sessions, and by exploring the inside of the community, we found these 6 personality traits with supporting evidence as to why the community had evolved in this way through time. And then we used the personality traits to develop a municipal website. We also created a cultural narrative for the community. This booklet you're seeing here is what we call the character booklet, and they use this booklet to attract the right kinds of business and people to Marana, and they'll also use it in future branding. But we had a really good time along the way. We engaged a very, very broad stakeholder base. We did one on one interviews, group brainstorming, activities, surveys, and everyone loved it and was energized in the process. So that's a second sample of how this approach can work when you get the culture brand connection. So zone 1, to recap, is capturing your culture's character. I'm going to provide a free tool for cultivating the culture brand relationship. This is focused first on capturing your culture. And in the worksheet, I will give you detailed exercises and activities for creating your own timeline of life forming milestones for your organization or your community. And so this will get you one step towards creating that contagious brand. The second activity I'm going to give you a free tool on is creating your culture brand connection. And I will focus on personality traits in that worksheet. So, just to give you some idea, from zone one, life forming milestones, again, I'll break it down so it's easy for you to create and walk away with a timeline of the most significant events of any kind that have shaped the course of your organization. And we'll have you log it by event type. I'll give you some prompts, different event types. You'll want to catalog your dates, relevance to your organization, and the effects of these milestones on your organization and key stakeholders. The second activity we'll do is personality traits, and we'll identify your organization's most defining personality traits, the attitudes and behaviors that define your difference, including incidents where your organization consistently expressed these traits and supporting reasons why you think your organization has cultivated these traits through time. So, to conclude, in the latter part of the 20th century, focusing on your consumer for branding worked, but today it's not good enough. And so the key to a great brand lives on the inside of your organization. You definitely want to align your brand with customer perceptions, but that's not where you want to start. You want to start on the inside with your internal culture. So I would like to take anyone's questions at this point.
Awesome. Great job, Paula. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim.
So early on, I'm going to unmute Emma Phelps. There was a reference, I believe it was on slide 7, to an article. Hi, Emma.
Hi
Um,
there.
and so can you go back to slide 7, Paula? And I just want to make sure she's wondering if you can share that link or resource, and I'm thinking we can send it in the follow-up.
Oh,
But, um,
absolutely. If you don't, I was going to say any hyperlinks that are in here. Do you want me to go back or just I can take a note.
Y yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, I
yes.
can.
Okay. I don't know that it was on the slide, but it was something. It was an article that you referenced about delivering the value for your employees or to your employees. That article that you
Mhm.
referenced
It's very
um,
early on.
sounded like a good one.
Absolutely. I think that there were two. There was the HCL case study, and there was also a healthcare organization that has flipped it and made their employees their number one stakeholder. And I'd be happy to share those in the follow-up email.
Great, thank you.
Okay, great.
Thank you. Okay, another question, Paula, is how do you measure the success of the culture brand connection?
Hmm. Yeah, I I start with first the energy that I see well up in the organization. That's when you're working on the culture. And so once I see the internal employees and team getting excited, I know we're on the right track. I almost find a passion vein within the community or the organization. Um, and then by the time you're infusing it into your brand, you'll be creating market pull. People will be referring you to others. You'll have third party endorsements. You'll be spoken highly of. And so that's what I look for in that second phase. And in the third phase, when you've got your brand position out there and you're broadcasting, it's all about your niche advantage. So at that point, you would find that you're being hired or contacted for something that very, very few people on the planet can offer. And that's how you know success in those three zones.
Very good. Thank you. And another thing that was mentioned is all this talk about internal branding. And so, how does internal branding is it the same as the public or the external brand? How do those connect? What's the
Okay, that's
difference
great.
for?
Yeah, so I had mentioned creating a thin membrane between your internal culture and your public persona or your external brand. And you want a thin membrane, but you don't want no membrane. So I feel that there's I think wayfinding on the inside, which is what I call branding, um, messaging and reminders about your vision and aim and mission. Those are good things to have around, but it's more intimate on the inside. I almost say it would be like if you went to a shrink, you would have internal personal dialogue on the inside that would be freely shared, but you would never share that publicly. So there's a building from zone one internal culture to external, but different. The public persona really is a public. I hate to use the word, but it's mask. It's what you project that is for public consumption based on your internal culture, though.
So there's internal branding initiatives that go on, and that's really getting the culture aligned and creating that brand connection internally, and then projecting that outwardly.
Yeah, yeah, and in fact,
Understood.
ways that I would envision interbranding would not only be through intranets and perhaps posters, but I would see people even creating gaming and things inside that help them understand each other, see where their talents and passions reside. So you can have a lot of fun with it. Um,
Yeah, gamification is becoming really big and
yeah,
a great
yeah.
way, I think, to connect to the brand.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just
Very
a big
good.
believer that you spend so many hours at work each day that you should love it. And so to get people excited about what you choose to come and work on every day, you might as well have wonderful reminders of it. And yeah, so.
Beautiful. And that's where then the ambassador comes in, right?
Absolutely. Yes.
Terrific.
Yeah.
What techniques do you recommend for collecting the cultural information? So I know you gave a couple of examples of a tool. Are there other techniques that you would recommend beyond what you've gone over here?
Well, one wonderful way to get information is through one-on-one interviews. I do often employ that method, but I also love group brainstorming sessions, say perhaps 15 to 20
Mm-hmm.
people, and you can design those in advance. And I find that they're very synergistic. You can also do surveys. I like polls and voting. So there are a lot of different. They're really research tools. It's social science in a way. There's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of
Mm-hmm.
different tools you can use, and I would be happy to share those even in the follow up. Different tools that can be used.
Very good. Thank you. And then one more, and you may have addressed this since, but what's the best way to get started here? How do you recommend people get started?
Um, it's all about finding the evidence on the inside of your organization. So, um, again, I have some wonderful tools that can get people beginning to be curious about the inside of their organization.
Cool. And I
So,
think seeing a lot of HR people here on the call, and I think we had one senior management person, but really, I think also just bringing together the different groups to start the dialogue. Is that also a good?
yeah, absolutely. I like to refer to it as self-indulgence, and I find that a lot of
Mhm.
people are a little uncomfortable with it. So I come right out and say, you've got to indulge in self-centeredness. You've got to take
Mm.
the time to be curious about who your organization is, why you're that way, and where you're going. So, yeah, take the time to
Beautiful.
do it.
Beautiful. Well, I do not see any other questions in the question window, so I think that you've covered everything. Beautiful job. So Paula's tool, a recording, and also any links that were referenced in studies within this context will be sent out, I think, by Thursday
Yep.
to everyone. So look for that email. And then we have one more webinar coming up that we're very excited about. That is next Tuesday, same time, same place, where we're going to do an interactive discussion, and it's going to be moderated by Leila Galindo, who has been joining us on these calls. And we're going to talk through kind of some of the trends and go just another level deeper on all of this. So we actually are wrapping up a little early today, so you guys just gained 8 minutes of your lives back. And thank you so much for joining us, and I would love to hear any feedback you have as well. We'll also be sending a survey after the fourth webinar next week also to get feedback. But any feedback you guys have, feel free to reach out to Paula on this context or any of us at any time. Okay, thank you so much, and
Thank
that
you,
concludes
everyone.
our webinar.
All right.
Take care.
Bye.